Howdy folks, Sapper here, aka Sean, and we are coming back to you live, well, for me anyway, it's live, with another turn of Next War Poland, the strategic surprise scenario. This is game turn 6, and I have completed all the way through the first supply phase. So this is going to be, I don't know how this turn's going to turn out, because we had right there, if you look. So the weather is a storm turn, and storm turns are bad because you don't have your movement point allowances are reduced on all forms of terrain. So you probably think to yourself, so what? Units can't move as far. Well, that affects supply. So there are, basically the past few turns have all been clear or overcast, and the Russians, for the most part, have stretched their supply lines like as far as they can stretch them. And now that there is a storm turn, basically, I don't want to say that so movement points have been halved, but in a lot of cases, movement allowances are almost halved, even on highways and primary roads. So you combine that with the fact that we as in the Russians, have stretched their supply as far as they can stretch it. Now they're going to be in quite a bit of a bind. So I'll get over to that map in a minute. But so if you look here, you're looking at the air superiority track, and storm turns do affect. I think there's, so if you look at this guy here, there you go. So you look at that guy. If you look in the top left-hand corner, there is not an A. A means all weather. So let me get a unit that's got, which you'll be able to see. There you go. You can see that. Oh, there you go. You can see that A in the top left corner. That means it's an all-weather plane. So any all-weather aircraft have to go to the flown box. Well, I thought that the Russians would have quite a few all-weather or aircraft that did not have all-weather capability, but I was mistaken. I think there's only one that I could find, and that was that U.S. Air Force A-10 Warthog. I think that's the only aircraft that does not have all-weather capability. So it went to the flown box, so it can't do combat support missions basically this turn. The NATO or allies, they basically had, you can look and you can see all these aircraft here. They had a lot of fighters in the air superiority box. So when it was all said and done, after the air superiority combat resolution phase, the allies basically, I think it had a 17, I want to say it was a 17-5 advantage, which basically equals 3-1. So you go down here, and that gives the allies air superiority. AWACS advantage gets updated. So that helps with a lot of things like detection of naval units. So, and also during a storm turn, naval units have to go to all sea hexes, or they have to go to port. So one of the two places. So this Polish unit was in the inshore box. I moved them into the port. I think I moved this German group out. It was in the inshore box. I moved them out to the southern Baltic. And that's pretty much, that's it for the strategic display. Didn't do a whole lot of it on there. So that was pretty short and sweet as far as that goes. And then the other thing that storm turn affected was, if you look at all these stacks of Marines, they're in this urban hex right here. These two amphibious support landing craft, they were also here, but this is not a port. So I had to move them to the nearest port, which was that port right there, Gdansk. So they're basically in the port right now because of the storm. Let's see what else happened here. So during the first strike phase, so you see these red cubes. These red cubes represented Special Forces operations. Let's see here. So they reduced this Apache brigade. They also reduced this brigade. Attempted here, unsuccessful. Special Forces hit that one. So the Special Forces, the Russian Special Forces, were pretty successful as far as targeting aviation brigades. So that was what? That's 4. And then they targeted that aviation brigade and were unsuccessful. And I think I only used 5. I think the Russians had 6. So NATO, we targeted this headquarters with, they just targeted, so, and they were successful. They targeted, there's a headquarters right there. So they targeted that one and were successful. Tried to hit that aviation brigade, were unsuccessful. Tried to target this headquarters, this aviation brigade, were unsuccessful, and then they targeted that aviation brigade and caused a step loss. So Special Forces, you know, they were relatively successful on both sides. Then as far as airstrikes go, or actually, I'm sorry, missile strikes, the Russians didn't use any because they're starting to run out. I used 2 ballistic missile strikes for the Allies. I targeted, you can't see that, let's see here. I targeted this headquarters and caused a strike 1, and then I targeted this headquarters here, and I don't think I did anything to that. So the next thing after cruise missiles and ballistic missiles came airstrikes. I didn't use any Russian airstrikes just because of this right here. I only have 5 fighters that could provide escorts, and I didn't want to risk losing any of those. So I didn't do any airstrikes for the Russians. The Allies, however, jumped on the opportunity to conduct some airstrikes. So you can see here we used 2 B-2 stealth bombers to hit that headquarters. And there was a strike 1 marker. We caused a strike 2 and a strike 1. So basically when it was all said and done, the headquarters was reduced and then kept 1 strike 1 marker, and it has no combat capabilities anymore. We also targeted that headquarters with a B-52. These 2 fighters provided air cover, which they weren't detected anyway, but you still have to allot them just in case. So I allotted them. They weren't detected, so there was no interceptor combat involved. And when it was all said and done, managed to cause a strike 1 on that headquarters right there. So carpet bombing, somewhat successful, maybe not. And then I had a B-1 and a B-52 target that, they just targeted this unit here because this unit you see that unit I thought would exert a zone of control on supply, which it does not, because it has to have there has to be at least 2 stacking points in that hex. So you can see there that number 1, that's 1 stacking point, and that's just a control marker. So that was before I read that. So anyway, I tried to get those guys out of there. They were detected. SAMs didn't do anything. These guys were interceptors just in case they were detected early. So basically, a strike one, and then I thought, you know what? Now that I think about it, I thought that this unit could exert a zone of control here. It has a 0 attack factor. I don't think they can. So honestly, I think all of these, actually no, I'm sorry, the fact that city is under Russian control is what keeps these Marines from being out of supply. Because they can't be supplied from the amphibious assault ships because they're not here anymore. So anyway, that's why I tried targeting these guys. So there was a couple of headquarters strikes that I did, but relatively ineffective. And then, of course, you can see that there's a ton of out of supply markers all over the place. Now, I think the only Soviet units or Russian units that are in supply are the 76th Guards and then the 26th Guards. Those guys are the only ones, because you have to trace. For the Russians, it's 6 motorized movement points from the nearest urban hex. So you go, so I think on a storm turn, a highway it's half a movement point. It's normally a third. So you figure 1, 2, 3, 4. And this guy's here. 4, 5, and then 6, and that's what that's for. So anything south of that, at least on this highway system, is out of supply. So these guys are out of supply. So from here to here is 6.5. So basically everything south of that is out of supply. So rather than, I did have out of supply markers on all these guys, but I just decided to let me know that the headquarters is out of supply, and then everybody subordinate to that is also out of supply. So these guys are out of supply. This MSU is out of supply because an MSU has to be in supply. So the way an MSU works is it can add 4 motorized movement points to extend the supply, but it still has to be in supply itself. So it is out of supply. And then, of course, we've got all this stuff down here. 6 hexes from the Belarusian map edge. So primary road in Storm is 1 hex. Normally in clear or other, it's a half. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The supply ends right there. And that's why all these Belarusian units are out of supply. So there's not going to be a whole lot. I can see there's not going to be a lot of attacks as far as the Russians and the Belarusians go. The attacking is going to be pretty limited. And the Allies will be able to attack because there's very few units that are out of supply. These Marines up here, and let's see. I think this is the only other. That's the only other guy that's out of supply for the Ally side of the board. Everybody else is in supply. So it's crazy, man. You know, you throw a storm turn in there and it throws everything, just messes everything up. So, and news from GMT, I'm happy to report. They have just announced Next War Vietnam, which is going to be, you know, it's an insta-buy for me. I love the series. But they've already talked about in the description that you would be able to link Next War Korea, Next War Taiwan, and Next War Vietnam for basically a Pacific Theater World War III game. That would be absolutely crazy, to link all 3 of those together. I've thought about doing Korea and Taiwan together, and that's a huge undertaking in and of itself. I haven't done it, but the idea is there for me to do that. It would just take up so much space and so much time. I mean, this Next War Poland it's a one mapper, and I mean, look how long it's taken me so far to do it. So it would just basically double the time, double the space, double the time to play that. It'd be ridiculous. It would be awesome. And you know, I really hope that they continue with the series. They do some more, you know, let's expand some maybe Middle East stuff, or maybe some Africa stuff, or, you know, South or Central American stuff. I think it would be really awesome. I could really get behind the system if we could, like, you know, make it a whole global thing. So, you know, you GMT guys, Mitchell Land, you know, hey, keep designing this stuff. I love it, and there's plenty of people out there that do. And for those of you all that follow me, hey, thanks for following, and you know, keep watching and support the Next War series, because obviously if you're watching my video playthroughs of it, then, you know, you have some kind of interest in it. So anyway, I guess that's all I've got for now. I'll stop talking, but you guys have a great weekend, and we'll catch you during the second half of turn 6, Next War Poland Strategic Surprise. Laters.